What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bios3 Raw TV. Today we're going to talk about something that I didn't really think that much about, but it makes sense, and I don't really get a whole lot of people asking the question, but every once in a while you get one, and this one kind of hit me because I was like, this is something we should actually talk about. And the question in the email was, how do you regain muscle? Now, I kind of stepped back for a second and was like, that's actually a good question, because it's not, you'd figure you go right back to doing what you were doing before. And let's say you were benching 315 before, and you say, I'm going to go back to benching 315, you get hurt because you can't handle the weight. It's just like, when people on heroin decide to go back on heroin and they relapse, they go use the same dosage they were using at first, they fucking overdose and wind up in the hospital. You can't just jump right back into what you were doing and go 100 miles an hour fucking no problem. You have to start off slow again. Now, muscle memory, although it's a real thing. I've seen it. I've had it happen to me. I've seen it happen to my friends. Although maybe it shouldn't be called muscle memory. Like, the body remembers how much muscle. No, the body doesn't really give a fuck. It needs enough muscle to get through the day and do its daily functions and survive. Pretty much that's what it needs. But once you've built a certain amount of muscle, there's now a new set point muscle mass wise, I feel, that I've seen over the years that you can get back to very quickly. Now, size surge, which was a study done by, I believe it was Arthur Jones and Casey Viator, where Casey had been in an industrial accident, and he had caught his hand in a machine, lost a finger, didn't train for, so many weeks or whatever, lost a whole bunch of weight. And then I believe it was in like, is it a 10-week size surge? In 10 weeks, he gained something like 63 pounds. Now, that was him rebuilding the muscle that he had lost before. Obviously, he'd gone back on the drugs that he was using. But the case is you regain that muscle very quickly. Now, he didn't gain 60 pounds in 10 weeks when he originally started training and taking steroids. So it comes back a lot quicker, and we've seen this phenomenon over and over again, and it's not anything new. But when you're regaining muscle, now, first of all, the question has to be, why did you lose the muscle mass in the first place? Now, I lost muscle to compete in the physique division on purpose. So therefore, I cut back my proteins, I cut back my the training loads in the gym, so the muscle wouldn't have to sustain the size to keep up with the load. And purposely lost that muscle, did some cardio, dieted off some of the muscle. Now, to regain that muscle again, which I haven't really thought about, but I'm sure that, if I was going to, this would be the route that I would probably take. I would probably increase the protein back again to where it was slowly. So if I cut out maybe 100 grams of protein, I'd probably add 25 grams back in for the time being and slowly increase the workload. So that means that weights that I was using, 15, 12 reps or whatever, I'd probably bring the reps down a little bit to, like, let's say, for instance, 8 reps. Train within the 8 reps to failure range. And what's going to happen is, as my body develops and gains that muscle back, those 8 reps are going to be very easy at that weight. Now what I would do is maybe bump the reps up to 12. Okay, notice I'm not just adding weight progression-wise. Now this would be for me. This is not necessarily for everybody. Now I'm going to be able to hit the same weight for 12. Now my body has progressed muscle mass-wise, strength-wise, size-wise. Now what I would do is now keep the reps at 12, and I would start to try to add weight at 12. See how that worked. If that wasn't working out too well and I wasn't able to gain strength on that, I would drop the reps back to 8, up the weight, till I could get 12 again. So I'd go back to progression by changing my protein and my weight training back and forth until that muscle mass had come back. Now, there's also another reason why you could be gaining muscle mass back, which is why I had to the first time I was doing it this year, which was an injury. Now, this is a whole different ballgame. So now you're not going to be able to start off and do things possibly that you could do before. Like, I cannot flat bench press anymore. I can floor press, but it's not the same effect. Even the floor press, it hurts. It hurts my rotator cuff. It hurts my bicep tendon. There are certain exercises that I can't do, and there's certain exercises I can do very light. And there's other exercises that I can do fairly heavy. Like dumbbell rows I can still do, the 140s with, which is fairly heavy. That's all my gym goes up to. I'll use the whole machine on chest supported rows, which is fairly heavy for one arm. I could do those things that are fairly heavy still, and I'm assuming that I could still do stuff like shrugs if I wanted to, but I don't fucking do them. What's the point? My traps are big enough. But there's other things like, incline bench press. I can't really do over 185 anymore. Anything above that, I get inflammation in that area, in my rotator cuff and my bicep tendon area. And now what's happening is, because one side is weaker, when I'm doing something with a bar, the other side bears a lot more of the workload, while the other one, the injury is taking place, and it injures the other side too. So then you have injuries on both sides. So now I'm looking at, okay, to regain that muscle mass, which is what I got injured with the rotator cuff, torn rotator cuff and bicep tendon, was healing from that, and then went back up in weight again to about 235, 240 pounds. So I'd probably trimmed down to about maybe 210 when I wasn't training, back up to 240 something. The whole time while I was trying to maintain my diet and keep a clean diet to try to actually stay as lean as I possibly could. But when I got to 240, I noticed that to maintain that weight, I couldn't use those weights anymore. But to get back to 240, I had to slowly progress back up, but I had to change some of the things that I was doing. There was no more bar pressing. I turned it into dumbbells or independent one-sided machines like hammer strength, where you could still press, but one side is independent apart from the other one, so that each side bears its own load. Like, I had to specifically think about things and not just go in the gym and do them. Like cable crossovers, flies, I could still do things that were independent. Anything with a bar was very difficult for me to do because one side was injured, one side was stronger than the other, and it was putting pressure on the other side. So if you're going to gain muscle after an injury, that's something that you have to sit back and figure out, how can I train around this injury, and can I train optimally enough without hurting myself to even gain the muscle back? I mean, could I do it? I did it. Was it optimal? It was as optimal as it could be. It was harder than it probably should have been because I couldn't do certain things. Is it sustainable? That's another thing that I had to figure out when I got there. Was that weight sustainable, that body weight sustainable with what I was doing? And the injury, because I'm a ninja, the injury kept nagging and not healing up. So I figured I have to figure out a different way around this. And that was basically to come down to muscle mass again. So that was my only choice, to be able to train with intensity, but not as heavy. So there's, my take on how to regain mass. I get a lot of people asking all the time, like, Jerry, you were injured and I'm injured. How do I keep my mass while I'm injured? And the answer to that is you don't. When you're injured, you let all your recuperative abilities go towards fixing that injury and healing that injury and getting better. Because your body only has, it really does only recuperate so much at a time. If you're trying to grow a chest while you're trying to repair a torn quad, it's just, your body's only going to do so much. And the more you tax your body, the more your central nervous system gets taxed, and your endocrine system gets taxed, and your immune system gets taxed, and everything gets taxed to the point where it can't recover and you're fucked and you get hurt again anyways. So the idea is, when you're regaining muscle, really sit down and make a checklist and try to figure out what direction you want to head in. And if you're heading in that direction and it's not the right direction, change directions. Bios3training@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.bios3training.com is a blog. It's the Regained Bicep, and we're out.